like we're live. All right, hello everybody. Thanks as always for joining our Thursday Anchore open source gardening session. We're the Anchore open source team. Today we've got myself, I'm Dan, we've got Chris Phillips, we got Keith, we got Will. We're the Anchore open source engineering team. We talk about any and all things Anchore open source. We've got a lot of different projects. Syft, Grype, Grant might be the type of projects you may have heard of. If not, what we fundamentally do is we write open source software that can point at your software material, be they container images or source code repositories or file systems, even bare metal servers. And our tech will go and try to figure out what you have installed. What are all the pieces of software you've got, whether they're RPMs or Debian packages or NPMs or Java jars, and how they all relate to one another, what their licenses are, gather a bunch of information. We store all this up in a very detailed data document that we call an SBOM. And from there, we've got another set of tools where you can feed this type of information up into the tools and have them do interesting things with that data, like a vulnerability scan or applying open source license policies and learn some more information about them. And so all of our projects are on GitHub. And every Thursday we get together and go through community issues, pull requests, anything that's got the tag needs discussion on it. We'll definitely talk about those. And sometimes we'll talk about specific bugs and feature requests and things like that. Sometimes we'll talk about general topics of interest that are happening out there in the community. So thanks as always for joining. I think we'll probably start with a request to the team here. Is there anything in particular you guys would like to cover before we get started in our typical needs discussion issues, PRs, and discourse topics?
I think Chris and I tagged a couple of things that probably are in these lists now yesterday.
Okay.
Don't quite remember which they were. Oh, one of them was maybe not one to discuss here, but an interesting thing. The Shai Halud malware. Not all of the packages that are affected by it have been identified in GHSA, which is an interesting finding. I was kind of wondering if there is anything like we don't really have a lot that we can do about this particular thing at the moment, I think, but I just found it odd that that would have been one of those things that I would have expected to see every single one in GHSA, just because of how high profile it seemed. But
Yeah. And is this still true? Is it, or is GHSA just behind?
as of yesterday, it was still true. I just spot checked a couple, and it was hit or miss as to whether they were in there.
Interesting. I wonder if yeah, so just to provide a little context for the audience, when Grype scans like NPM packages, we use GitHub security advisories and we include malware. So so GitHub security advisories includes marking packages malware, and packages that were compromised by the Shai Hulud attack were marked as malware in GHSA, but um, apparently not all of them, according to the CSV. So just a little context. Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's really hard because like GitHub publishes GHSA, but they also like yank things for terms of service violation and like hide things. And I know during the XZ attack, like the first wave of blog posts had like links to PRs and stuff, and all that stuff was gone after a while because GitHub took it down because it was malicious code. And I'm not saying they should leave out malicious code, but that makes it hard. Like if an npm package gets like was malware but also got yanked, then I don't know. It can be challenging to like go back and reconstruct. So yeah, I don't know. What did you want to talk about with this one in particular, Keith?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I was just wondering, like, hey, what could we do here? And and we had a little bit of a discussion with some of the other data experts, and it sounds like there are a number of hurdles. One of which being that these malware entries are different than the GHSA vulnerability entries. So, like, there's a different team that does it. The submission process isn't the same. I think like last week, like I submitted a change to one of the vulnerabilities that was updated like right before the live stream. And so we, were able to talk about, hey, it's so great we can submit these changes, but like these malware ones are different and we don't have the same process to be able to submit the changes to GitHub. It's my understanding. And so
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
I think that we'd probably go back and forth and, design some system or something which is already in place, or like the work is going on that anyway. So we could probably skip
Since
this one.
How
yeah,
how
I'm
does the
gonna
current how does the current GitHub provider even interact with these malware entries? I feel like we do it for all the ecosystems, but this is like
I,
separate and equal to the not reviewed versus reviewed segment of the API.
Uh, go ahead.
go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, well, and the weird thing is like, so one of the things that I tested in Grype and it came back with a finding. I put that GHSA in the search and it didn't even return anything because you have to additionally put type colon malware in the search for it to search this other data set somehow. So it's like it's really confusing on the GitHub side, like
I- Sorry, you put that into GitHub, not Grype,
GitHub. Yeah.
right?
So
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, in the
Okay.
GitHub Security Advisory search, you had to include type colon malware. Yeah, and so
Right.
it was really confusing as to like why there are different data sets and like what the process even is to get them updated.
But I do think, so just to be clear, like the Grype database does include this type, right? Because they do have GHSAs and we have a GHSA provider that
Yeah,
doesn't have,
that was my question. I was like, how do
it
we even
does.
interact with this type when we pull it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
I
I
dropped
think
a
what I was going to say after that is that this ticket I do think deserves a response because this is correct, right? As far as our analysis so far, this could be an upstream data issue in a sense. Yes. If the
yeah.
GHSAs existed for this, Grype would find all of them. If they don't, then Grype will not find anything that doesn't have a GHSA. We don't have an independent malware source that looks at the CSV that is published by these guys, right? And so there is an interesting question. I don't have any reason to believe this isn't accurate information, but that's one of the things that when it goes through the GitHub security team, they will go through and try to determine accuracy, existence, all of that stuff. And so I can't say because I haven't looked into all of these, right? But one possibility is that some of these things may or may not be accurate. I'm sure most of them are, but the fact that they're not in the GHSA database is the reason why Grype isn't reporting on them today. And so I do feel like this ticket could use a follow-up to say like, explain just that fact, right? Grype doesn't have a software bug where there's information that exists and we're not matching properly. It is a data issue. Those things aren't currently in the GHSA database, and so thus Grype isn't reporting on them.
Right. Yep. That's absolutely right. So I'll write that response up to them. But okay, yeah. Like I said, it was just more of a general question, like, hey, this is a weird scenario, and I was just kind of like wondering, like, what should we even do about this if we?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that is an interesting discussion, right? The fact that you guys pointed out there isn't for malware, the submission process is different. And I agree, there was a discussion internally where I'm not sure what the follow-up has been yet, but one of our data engineers did recommend like, we probably just need to send them an email and essentially ask this question, or maybe even a link to this ticket, right? That kind of thing might move
Yeah.
the ball.
All right. Well, like I said, I'll definitely respond to this issue.
Yeah. This is also the sort of thing that like I want to set up a server that just like tails GitHub events, right? And because then I could, then there we could have like a database where we're like, hey, people are creating this repo, right? A lot. But I think in childhood 2, the repos had a random name that like got credential attacked. I think in the first Shai-Hulud attack, they were all called Shai-Hulud. But anyway, so these are I guess these are repos that are these are npm packages that had a malicious version published due to the Shai-Hulud compromise. Is that what we're looking at?
I believe that's what that's supposed to be, yes.
Yeah. Right. And GHSA malwares are interesting. They don't like have a CVE description or a severity or like a version range. They just say like this package is considered malware. Any computer that's touched this package should be considered infected. Don't mess with this. Like it's a very different looking thing. Um, but yeah, I checked the GraphQL query we use in Funnel. We're definitely pulling in malwares. That is GitHub security advisories of type malware.
Yep. Yeah, definitely an interesting one. I also think false positive is the wrong tag for this. I don't think this is this thing's about
Yeah,
raising up
it's
results. Yeah, it's a false negative. Yeah, I think. Oh,
yeah.
you'd already done that yesterday.
Yeah, I'm in there editing, adding comments, so.
Yep. This is sort of, I was curious to actually investigate like one of these. Um, no releases. Yeah. Yep.
I have a quick. It's running on my local, but it's a bash script that's going to check for all those packages, which of them just have malware GHSAs for them. Not, I'm going to do the advisories on the other side, but then we can at least post a result on this issue that shows these are the ones we found GHSAs that have under the malware segment. These are the ones that have GHSAs just, by themselves under the reviewed or not reviewed category. And these are the ones that have them for those columns related to Shai-Hulud. And then you can do the photo negative of that and say, here are packages that just have no upstream like filings, so we're not going to detect it.
Nice.
Let's see.
Okay. Anything more to discuss on this one, or should we move on? I think there's an action on us to go and follow up with the GitHub team as well, so, which is something we've had a conversation about internally.
Yeah, we can move on to the next one while we kind of put together the reports of what the upstream data looks like to post on the issue.
Nice.
Mm.
All right, where should we go next?
We can look at that one. I don't know if we've covered this one in live stream before. Syft.
I don't recall covering this one. Yeah.
This was probably the other one that we tagged. Let's see. Well, I think the short description of this one is when we import CycloneDX, there are component types for each of the components, and we have a specific set of them that we key off of to create packages in the Syft data model, and we drop components that aren't in the specific set that we're using to create packages or files. And one of those that we're not creating packages for is operating systems. And we have a weird dichotomy in the Syft data model where we have a Linux distro, but we don't have any other way of expressing other operating systems like Windows, really, right? And so, but it is a common thing to be in SBOMs. So at the very least, for conversion, for example, it would be useful to have some way to put that in a known package or other data structure. And I guess the main question that I had on this one is like, should we just add an OS package type and then call it a day? Should we do something different? I don't really have the answer there. It's more question for the team.
But yeah, they've got an H CPE in there too. So right, so the CPE has three types. There's hardware, operating system, and application. So this particular SBOM looks like there's a hardware and a operating system on it. Yeah, I mean, I think, is there a Perl type for operating systems?
That's literally what I was just looking up. Let's see.
I don't believe so, because that's not really an ecosystem. I think it's likely they would fall into the generic type.
Oh, that's interesting. So, sorry if I'm just catching up, but basically they're saying if they put application here, then I'm assuming Grype will fall back to like NVD CPE matching.
Yeah, we wouldn't even we'd totally just drop the component. It gets filtered out of the package before going into being scanned.
Yeah.
Right, so we drop the whole, yeah.
But I
So
mean,
I think,
I think it's legitimate to say like we support O when we're doing CPE matching, right?
Yes,
We used to
I believe
drop
we're
that.
pulling those in. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we have those in the database now.
And the
Yeah.
filtering out is because of the type operating system. So we should maybe stop filtering that out. But then I have to look at the decision why we started to filter it in the first place.
Well, I mean, we didn't always deal with O's, right? Because you know there's a CPE calculation thing that happens against NVD data, right, with conditionals and stuff like that. But I think quite a while ago we did add support for that, and like it seems to me like that would be an equivalent decision. Like we're no longer filtering out O-type CPEs, so we also shouldn't be filtering out essentially O-type cyclone components.
My Perl research has also shown that I think this is where like program world breaks for us because like Perls are designed to represent things that are built, versioned, distributed, and installed as artifacts, and they consider like operating systems as like environments that those packages operate in, like it's like a different level of the world. So they don't totally try and model it yet. So this is like a world where we do have to just fall back to NVD and like the wider ecosystems that do want to represent vulnerability data for operating systems.
Yeah.
right. Well, and there's a whole like CPE language of like on, right, where you can say like, this, like maybe there's a vulnerability in the Ruby interpreter that is present on Windows because Windows has like a different compiler chain that resulted in the Ruby interpreter that's actually running than Linux does, or different path handling semantics or whatever. And so I think that's like the next step is like now that we have the OS component, but a lot of the CPEs are like the big CPE constraint isn't just like this CPE is this package, but it's like a whole like this package is vulnerable running in this configuration in this environment. But yeah, I do think that the CPE-Os we should have a Syft package type for that. I think it would be unreachable from Syft cataloging because we don't find operating systems now, but Convert should support it because I think our position is that the Syft SBOM is a superset of the other SBOM specs and can represent any other SBOM. So
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think what you're pointing out is an important aspect of this, which is like there's different ways of using OCPEs in NVD. Some are like as essentially a conditional. Like if you're on a Debian and you have this thing, then vulnerable, or blah, 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 blah. But I do think this might be a more common pattern in the firmware world, right? Where the it's a different kind of OS oftentimes in firmware where it's not so much like, oh, a Linux OS where you can go in and upgrade this package but not these other packages. The firmware OSs tend to have a collection of software versions, and they're not really set up to go in and update them one by one. Like you get a new version of the firmware, like on your router, stuff like that, which just has an entire set of fixed, software revs. And so in environments like that, I think it makes sense when they register CVEs, they're going to register it against the version of the firmware which has a bunch of software in it, rather than if you're on this version of Nexo OS and you have this version of whatever Nginx, then this is vulnerable. I suspect that's why just switching to application works in this case, because they're probably registering the CVEs just against this entire pile of firmware.
Mhm. And I think we do have typos CPEs in the Grype database.
Yeah.
We just there's the path to matching against them is right, is just to have a package with that CPE. Yeah. So I'm in favor of adding this to the Syft data model, especially because we can add new package types in a non-breaking way. And then I think Grype, if it sees an OS package type, should search for CPEs, and hopefully the CPE has :O in it. We find the stuff, and so yeah, I like
Can
it.
we talk just real quickly about, because we're like doing CPE based matching for like OS systems, the potential hit for like false positives that start coming back for, like, let's say people are using SBOM that produced some number of list of vulnerabilities. We make this change. This has the potential to grow that list, and they're like, why weren't we detecting
So
it before? Go ahead. Yeah.
okay, yeah. I hear you. I'm trying to understand. So right now, if you pass a Cyclone DX SBOM into Grype, it's just going to ignore items of type operating system, right?
Right.
And so you're worried people are doing that, and then they're going to start getting findings
They're going to start getting
and
findings, and then what percentage of the CPE based matching, based on like the documents that they're using, are true positives versus false positives that
I
we're going to get back.
think I think actually, so CPE's whole problem, in my opinion, is the lack of ecosystems, right? Like the Python client for talking to the Docker daemon is CPE Docker Docker, and the Docker daemon is CPE Docker Docker. Um, but like the I think an operating system is actually much better identified by the tuple of vendor name version, right? This is Microsoft Windows 95 SP2, and that's one piece of software that we can generally agree on what it is. So I don't
Yeah.
know, it might be worth assessing, but I don't know, like because there's the :O in it, it's not gonna have like a lot of our CPE um, false positives were either language ecosystem confusion, right? There's a
Yeah.
Python package and a Ruby package with the same name, or they were server client confusion, right? There's the
Yeah.
like Java client for MariaDB versus MariaDB, the database server, which are really not the same piece of software at all. Like those confusions make a lot of false positives, but I don't see the CPEOs having that confusion as much. I think I'd be willing to give it a try. We could also just try a sample of them and just see, like, you can pass that CPE to Grype today. Does it find anything? Do the things
Well,
it finds seem legit?
That's true.
I think that the difference here is that we're not generating these CPEs, right? Somebody's actually
Yeah,
giving
that's
us a
right.
real CPE.
That's a good point.
So like
Oh,
that should
yeah.
should work accurately. The problem we have is that we're generating CPEs that are, based on some stuff and it's just wrong. That's generally the thing.
Right. And we can't tell on the vulnerability side, like a correct CPE for, a Java package and an NPM package of the same name by the same vendor might look the same.
Right.
Um, and so
Mm, sweet.
cool.
I guess barring any like weird versioning strings on the like CPEO side of stuff, I'd
Ooh,
say send it. Like
that
go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say that looks like Oh, it's a less than equal on there.
Right.
Can we put an SP3 in there and see if those go away?
Yeah, I do. That I want to know, like, ew.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, our constraint matching might need a little work.
Can we take off a V? Maybe the V is
The
the
V is
problem.
definitely causing a problem. I'm pretty sure there's
Oh,
some
that could.
other related thing that I was
No, there's no.
chatting with
No.
this
Well,
person
an
about.
SP, I think what's happening, um, dear listener, is Grype tries really, really hard. This is not great. This seems wrong. Um, so we probably will be causing false positives if we merge this right away. Maybe we should think about that. Um, but Grype tries really, really hard to match versions in the right way. So, like in Python, there's a PEP 440 client, which is like PEP 440 is like how
Oh,
Python packages are allowed to version. And what?
Dan, sorry, just real quick, Dan, you're doing a Grype DB search. I don't think that's doing the version matching
Oh,
in
yeah,
Grype
yeah,
DB
yeah.
search.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, never mind.
Just do Grype and then the CPE. You don't need any search at all. Grype will just try to scan the CPE.
Yeah. Sorry.
But
That
Will,
that makes
you were talking about the different version constraints that we run into.
yeah. And so if we well, let's see. This might just do the right thing, and then I'll have to explain how bad the very, very last case of the switch statement is for version matching.
We do have to put a V in there just to see because we already modified it just a little bit, but we'll check this first.
Yeah.
Your database is in oh, it's built a week ago.
Yeah. That's a weird little like that error is getting logged. I think that's a little TUI bug where the error is getting logged because the database is old, but then um right, the error is okay, hey, the V doesn't change it. But like we could yeah, so I don't know if those are true positives or not. But
How about try it
does it
without
look
the V for the SP3?
well, that's a good sign.
That is good.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so anyway, in the version comparison, we're like, is it a semver? Is it a PyPy version? Is it a D package? Is it an RPM? And eventually, does it regex like a semver? Do we know what it is? And we go through all these attempts to like compare the version correctly. And at the end of the day, we're just like string sort because we have to do something deterministic and we can't figure out what this version is. So we could be falling back. So maybe we need an OS version comparator that needs some work. So yeah, that's a valid concern. But yeah, so it looks like SP3 didn't find anything.
Lowercase.
Yeah, case sensitive search issue there.
Right. That makes me think we're getting into the string sort case because one kind of letter is like a lower byte number than the other kind of letter. I can never remember which way it goes, but
All that stuff. Yeah. Well,
so.
but I mean, popping back up to the core request. Yeah, I do think it's worth thinking like since Grype does take CPEs like this, like we just saw it, like there's some refinement, but sometimes they'll be able to actually change this stuff to conform to make sure because even this string is different than this string, so this might be manual input. But at the end of the day, since Grype takes one of these and gets you a result, then I think it's legit to say the Cyclone processor probably shouldn't be filtering these out.
Well, and I guess like the core of my question was like, do we all think that just adding an OS package type is okay for this? And if so, then that seems like a pretty simple change.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense, right? Because the SBOM, especially as we get into supporting people who show up with an SBOM they made, like Syft right now doesn't catalog what operating systems are present. It checks what distro is present. It looks at its OS release if that's one of the paths it has access to. But yeah, I think that makes sense because I think I think we need to be able to write this down, and people are going to show up with SBOMs that have it in it, and it's a good thing to do. So
Yeah,
that
I
makes
mean,
sense to me.
for what it's worth, makes sense to me too, especially for firmware. I actually think it gets much more nebulous when you're talking about Linux distributions and Windows and that kind of stuff, because again, the OS is kind of, it's not, an OS version doesn't give you information that's common across the board about what software is in it. It's super dynamic. Whereas in firmware, may as well just be another piece of like another type of software package. Like, firmware V1 that runs in your ASUS home router has, 100 dependencies in it, just like an RPM has 100 files in it. And V2 has a different 100. And there's never a V1 here and a V1 here that have different software in it. That's not how those things work. So it does feel to me like a more like a software package than Linux distribution. So.
Cool. Okay. Well, I appreciate all the feedback here. I will put our conclusions on the
Cool.
issue and
That's a good one.
get it moved forward.
All right. Yeah, do you guys want to move on? Add support for clean start packages.
306.
I think we talked about that, and that
did.
was
We did.
yeah.
Yep. Let's see what's happened since then. This is what I recall we talked about.
Yeah. I don't think we need to discuss it again.
Yeah, we did talk about that last week. How about this one? Did we talk about this? The source supplier?
Yeah, we're working with them to get this across the line as far as reducing the flags, but allowing like a config
Oh yeah.
to go in that colors in the SBOM a bit more.
Nice.
Yep. You could probably take the needs discussion off of this one while you're there.
Oops, I did the wrong thing.
I think since we're hitting these again, maybe it's worth going and looking if there's no triage ones that we want to hit, or let me look at this.
Sorry, Chris, were you saying we should use a different?
No, the view that I pulled up are also ones that we've discussed, so apologies. I was trying to see if let's see.
I mean, some of these we've definitely discussed a few times, so it's it's okay to go back and see what the latest update is, and just kind of garden. See
Yeah,
if
we can
there's
do that.
anything left that needs discussion. Like this one, I think might be a good candidate.
Oh, this one is almost merged. I don't think we need more discussion on this one, do we?
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought we were really close to the end on this one.
Are you doing the review for this one, Keith?
Yeah, it's approved. Alex is making a few changes based on the feedback, but it's already approved. So, and it's in use already.
Yep.
So,
Cool. We could skip that.
yep.
Yeah, just for context for those, this is going to be a way to get some more detail about what the various catalogers in Syft actually consult. and a little bit more about how they work. So it's a really cool feature. Like, check this stuff out. We've talked about it a few times, but it's coming. So it's on its way in. So I think we'll remove the needs discussion unless anyone disagrees. Okay, nice. How about PRs? You guys want to take a look at those? These are PRs that still have a needs discussion on them.
Maybe not the merged one. That one probably should be discussed on a future issue since we already merged it months ago and it's presumably released.
Yeah.
I think the last one on there, the package completeness, we probably would want Alex for, seeing as that's his PR.
Yep. And how about the first one?
I don't recall what this one is. This is a Grype issue. Is this the thing that we just basically wanted to look to see if the update field of the CPE was set? And if it is, additionally use that version to see if it's vulnerable or not vulnerable? Right, like append the version and the updates together to make a version string. That's what it looks like. Oh, this is
Patch numbers and fuzzy version comparisons got merged.
I think
Yeah, so
yeah, sorry, go ahead, Will.
yeah, if I recall correctly, so there's places where, like, if you can scroll up to the test case that was just scrolled past down, sorry, there's like a unit like, so like where line 65 is visible there. So we have some projects release something like 428 patch 9 and 428 patch 15. And because this was falling all the way back to the string sorting case, like patch 15 was older than patch 9. And so this detects the very narrowly the case where like patch 9 should be less than patch 15 because it's a number. That was an attempt to address some incorrect CPE matching on CPEs that have weird versions. And I guess that either contributed to or failed to totally fix this other issue that we're just discussing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess there's not consistency. So like,
Well, I think if we look at the changed files on this one, there really aren't that many changes, but there's a function added, combine version and update.
yeah.
Like that's the crux of what this is doing. Like I think we're just ignoring the patch
Yeah,
field.
yeah. Right, that makes sense. Because I think one of the things that's happening, right, is CPE has a bunch of fields, right? All this colon star, colon star, colon star are like fields with wildcards in them. But yeah, so we try to combine, right? So the CPE field, right? So I was trying, so I guess we sometimes find CPEs where the version is like 428 patch 18, but sometimes we find CPEs where the version is 428 and the update is patch 18.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to compare those two. So this is an attempt to do that. This makes sense. Changing the CPE matching is scary because it could change our verdict on a giant pile of CVEs. So we'd want to really test this. But I think in general, it makes sense because there's not consistency in the ecosystem with how CPEs get filled out, which is one of the main problems with CPEs.
Yep.
So I think generally speaking, yeah, the consensus that if I recall from the last discussion was basically that too, that like, hey, this seems like a good thing to do. It looks like there's a failing test. So I would say that like maybe
Look at this test.
I mean, one of us could maybe have a look at it, but I suspect that like what's happening is exactly what you're saying, Will, is like there's some nuance in this that's changing a match that, you know, in an unexpected way because of this patch version, and we just want to be very careful about getting this right. I'm just gonna read this.
Okay, well, I'm not, is there a discussion that we need in order to unblock the motion, or is it at this point just a matter of reviewing the PR further, looking at the test? I mean, there might need to be a discussion depending on the test results.
Yeah, I'm curious which test is failing. But yeah, I think broadly speaking, there's nothing like big to discuss here. It just needs somebody to review it and to do the hard work of making sure that it doesn't make us right about 3 packages and wrong about 680, which is how version comparison changes often go.
Yeah. So I think I'll pull the needs discussion off of it so that we don't kind of re-review it without. Right.
Sounds good.
Okay. Cool. Next up, we've got from chat, we got our friend Alan Pope. Hi, Alan. He's got one that he's asking for us to take a look at. So let's do that.
Whoa.
This is some redirect thing.
Oh,
Hey,
that's
sure. Yes, I do want to leave YouTube. I don't know how I got to YouTube in the first place, but I do want to leave it.
It's a redirect. Yeah, let me get the actual here. Okay, 3122. This one.
Oh, perfect. 3122, great. Compile for us to subscribe shows. Misidentifying a home built binary as deviant when it's actually a home compiled binary. Here's a snippet from when you use Snappy Max on that JQE Max. Yeah, let's see. Type deb is wrong.
Interesting. I wonder if we're like assuming everything in the snap manifest is a deb.
Yeah, I think we are doing that, which is a problem.
And there's another thing, there's a distro explicitly specified. So I think that doesn't that have the effect of treating all debs as that distro?
What? Well, we have a generic. That's interesting. It has type deb but Perl generic. That's definitely this package record is just malformed on its own then. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, we might be pulling it out of the manifest. I forget exactly how that works, but it doesn't have a distro in the Perl, but a distro is specified on the command line, which means that Grype will use that for everything. So I wonder
Right.
if we don't specify the distro in the command line, does it have better behavior?
And there's a repro command at the top of this issue, right? Because Ellen always writes really good issues.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm trying it out myself.
What's the issue? This is Grype 3122.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'm interested, like, I'm sorry I don't know the answer to this, but for snaps, right? So we have a snap cataloger explicitly. It's looking at this stuff. It is interesting that the type is described as a deb. I mean, it's probably not a Debian package, right? It's a snap. But it's interesting to me, even if it were, like, how is Debian talking about snaps in terms of the vulnerability data sources
So,
of Debian? Like, does it matter that
so
it's a distro Ubuntu 2404, or
I,
are
I think
snap
so,
vulnerabilities
but
independent? Yeah.
snaps are modeled like images, more like images than packages in Syft because they contain a bunch of stuff, right? Because they're another way of like saying this is a tarball of an executable and everything it needs. So in that way, they are kind of like images.
Right, and they have a manifest file. I like it. There could be some different things that happen when we scan the snap, but one of them is a manifest file. And I suspect that's where this Perl is coming from because this doesn't look like anything I think that we generate in Syft otherwise. Um, and again, it doesn't have a distro in the Perl there.
Right.
So like if we scan that Perl directly, does that have the same problem? I'm sorry, I'm still waiting on my own hydrating. So let's do that finally. Let's see. It shows the snap that's vulnerable to.
Yeah, so this is very much when you run like Syft snap colon Emacs, it's very much like it downloads the snap and then it like indexes the file system and stuff. So
Right. And so if I run just with that Perl, that generic snap, that doesn't find anything because it's a generic Perl. So the only way that it's finding anything is because it's a deb and it needs to know a distro to search. So the distro is specified in the command line. So I'm a little confused as to what to answer here because it sounds like by specifying the distro, it's doing the wrong behavior. So it's kind of like if I
but
went to the doctor and like was punching myself in my
I
armpits.
I don't yeah, well I think but there's this package he's showing that doesn't seem like a right package. And that has nothing to do with whether it's so like passing dash dash distro Ubuntu 2404 to Grype will cause Grype to match D packages against the Ubuntu vulnerabilities for 2404. But I think he's saying that we're finding something and claiming it's a D package when it's not, which is a totally different error and won't happen just because you pass dash dash distro. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's right. And Ellen is is making some comments in the chat. He said he did use distro Ubuntu 2404 to coerce Grype to find the Ubuntu 404 vulns. But yeah, I think fundamentally, it's, yeah, and Alan put this in, it's misidentifying it as a deb. Thus, if you give a distro,
Right.
you're getting false positives.
So
which is an interesting relationship. Yeah, I think it's a Syft problem.
I'm trying to
Right.
get to the core of why it's misidentifying it as a deb right now, and
Yeah, it's
I put a
I
interesting.
link.
think it's just I don't know. I mean, I did a just you know, what's the type of all the artifacts in the SBOM, and we find in that particular snap, we find 354 debs and one Python package. So I think maybe we're just thinking like snaps are made out of debs and we're wrong. I don't know. I
Yeah,
haven't looked at the
well,
snap catalog very.
Alan did share some of his experience on the chat as well, confirming that snaps can contain debs, but he says in this case the Emacs install wasn't a deb. So the cataloger might be assuming if there's a thing in that meta snap YAML that it is a deb, but it doesn't have to be, and so this is a specific.
Yeah.
Yep, I think we're circling on the core of the issue.
Package.
Yeah, and again, I put a link to the Syft code. I think that is in question.
it's is it? Did you link to the process build packages from parts or from Snap, and where we just pass in that it's Debian? We use the Debian constructor, new Debian package from
But
Snap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
where do we where
that's
do
what my debugger took me to.
oh yeah, there's this little
Line 102 and like parse snapd
well,
snapcraft.
I think we're actually calling into line 16, right? We parse the snap YAML and then we call into new package. Um, and then we have just written down, you see that comment on line 16?
16.
Yeah.
Use Debian package type for compatibility. So somebody just said, we don't know what type of package this is. It's a deb. So that's, I wonder, maybe Alan will tell us because he knows about these things in the chat. What like can we tell what kind of a thing it is? Like, does the snap YAML tell us that this was built from source versus installed from a deb? I don't know how, like, just sitting here on my Mac to like dump the snap YAML manifest out of this snap.
Yeah, that's where I was going too. I want to see what's in here.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the snap.yaml like test fixture. It's pretty sparse. But there is a difference between the snap.yaml and depackage.yaml that we parse for it. So anything under like the depackage.yaml, we should be like, yeah, for sure, that's a deb. But like when we get the snap.yaml, we go, it could be a deb, but it also could be. I don't know. If it's not in the depackage.yaml, does that mean it's not a deb, or can some things in the snap.yaml be a deb?
well, yeah, I don't know. So when we parse, like in parse snap YAML, right, we decode the YAML and then, oh, that's wrong. So we assume that the we assume that the snap itself represents a deb. That's where I'm looking at. But I think Keith was pointing us to the right line before, which is that I can't remember if a snap has a depackage in it.
Well, yeah, I think there's a couple places we're just defaulting to depackage, and the real question is exactly what you all have said is there a way that we can tell what we're supposed to put from the YAML? And whatever the answer to that is, either yes or no, then we'll either be able to fix this or not.
I have to go back to the YouTube chat. Let's see if Alan's been shouting at us that yes, sometimes snap.yaml can be depackaged, or if he's not shouting that.
In theory.
He is shouting. I'm sorry. I had a different tab up, but
Yeah, I have like multiple monitors happening. This is
so there's a manifest YAML that accurately says what it is. Like that's an interesting thing to perhaps go and consult in the cataloger.
it depends. Because if like I'm just putting this out, I'm in favor of if we can't get the information from snap.yaml that says it's a deb, then we just put type like binary on this thing. But
Yeah.
we need proof that it's deb to assign it deb, and we need to fall back to being binary, and we don't just assume deb in this case.
Yeah, and I think I was actually probably in the wrong spot, but there's another detail. We do have a generic Perl in this particular case. And I think in the case that we had a deb, we would have a deb Perl, right?
Oh, so we're like lying to ourselves, like we're putting a package type deb, but then we're making it generic in the output. Let me see.
Yeah, that's what I mean by the package is malformed, because it says it's deb, but then it has
Yeah.
So I mean, I think for this one we have some path forward at least, which is look at the Perl here.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like this Alan's surfacing like we figured out conclusively like this is a Syft issue, I think, and B it kind of just points to like, I think our snap cataloger might need some attention, just like to review the way it works and map that to things like manifest YAML that Alan's pointing out. So Alan did ask a question: would you like me to move this to a Syft issue? That would be great. I think that's the right move.
yeah. Well, and what I don't want to do either, though, because it seemed like there was a version mismatch too, right? Like there's all kinds of stuff going on in this issue, right? Like we're building a package that's inconsistent with itself. It's issue one. We have a false positive about it based on the version constraint, but even given the version, like we found
Well,
like
only
right,
when
like
yeah, but only when distro is provided, right?
but I thought he was saying it's fixed in Emacs 29.4. Let me just do a GrapeDB search for this CVE. Because that's surprising too. Oh, come on.
Whoa. Hmm.
All right. Kind of very quickly get an Ubuntu container running in another tab to try to like get an Ubuntu shell so I can just like inspect this stuff manually. And it does not come up with snap running and happy. And
Just as to follow up about the DB search, I'm seeing the 2404 entry for Emacs for that CVE does not seem to have a version constraint.
Right. So it'll flag for sure.
Yeah.
okay. Well, then, okay. So then there's sort of that, and that's maybe an upstream data issue. Can we go look at the Ubuntu 2404 page for that vulnerability and see if it's a issue in the upstream data or not?
Is it?
It's just slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Can I be?
Yeah. I think this is sort of too. There's at least two issues here.
Wow. Internet unhappy. Oh, here we go.
Emacs 2404. Yeah, so this is telling us, this is saying that 2404 is only fixed in ESM.
Yeah.
And so I think,
This is why it's
but
flagging, because it's still.
right.
Oh, that's Emacs 21. Sorry. So.
Yeah, so this is, I think this is an interesting one where like, so there's no fix on base Ubuntu 2404, but somebody downloaded the source code for a later version of Emacs than the upstream fix and built it on Ubuntu 2404, which is just not going to result in accurate matching.
Oof.
There's all kinds of stuff in this issue. This is a good one. Thanks, Alan.
That is a good one.
I'm gonna label this one more needs investigation, and
Yeah, I think right, and I think there's I think
Oh.
right. And so I think to try to give a summary of where we're at. The snap cataloger in Syft is incorrectly identifying an Emacs built from source for the snap as Emacs derived from a deb for the snap. Then when we scan that with dash dash distro Ubuntu 2404, there's no non-paid fix for this CVE for Ubuntu 2404 for any version of Emacs. So because we assumed it was a deb in Syft because it came from inside a snap and Ubuntu makes snaps, we think it's vulnerable at every version when we're in Grype because the only fixes are either on different distros or on paid versions, and we don't have the data in the database yet for the paid versions. So it all comes back to assuming this is a deb. I don't know how to inspect the snap file system itself and tell that one of the members was built from source rather than downloaded from a deb. I don't know how to do that, and I don't have Ubuntu running anywhere. I tried to get snapd to work in Docker, and I'm not going to figure it out in the next -3 minutes. So
yeah, we are a bit over. I did want to. Yeah, we'll definitely follow up on this. Great issue, Alan. Thanks for raising it. We'll take a look for sure. There's a, and you called it. It's a cluster of issues, which is true. But good stuff. Thank you. And I know we're a bit over. I did want to maybe end the meeting today, and while you're here, Alan, I'm really glad. We did want to let folks know we've got a new open source doc site that was launched a couple days ago. It's really great. We're very happy about it. There's a GitHub page that has all the content for folks to contribute to, but it's got a whole lot of material in here. And effectively, we'd come to the conclusion the READMEs are fine, and we're going to keep maintaining those. But there's an awful lot of stuff about our open source tooling, and there's configuration things of interest. There's complete guides, right, about how to use the tools from these kind of high-level topics. Generating SBOMs, vulnerability scanning, which sometimes has a combination of tooling. So it's not just strictly like, here's what all the config options are. There's actually guides and some interesting material in here about use case. And I especially wanted to shout out Alan, right? You got this project off the ground and really did a lot of work on this. And so I'm glad you're here to see, here it is, it's out there in the wild. So I hope everybody enjoys this new launch from the Anchore open source team. Brand new open source documentation site. So congrats everyone, and I hope everyone enjoys. And whatever you find here out there, community, please take a look at it and let us know what you think. There's a contributing guide that includes not only how to contribute to the projects, but also at the very end, how to contribute to the docs. So thanks everybody. Just wanted to share that before we called it for a conclusion. And also, this will be our last live stream of the year of 2025. The next two sessions, as they normally fall on the calendar, are right on holidays. And so I wanted to wish everyone out there happy holidays, and we'll see you back in 2026. Thank you, everybody.
Happy holidays, everyone.
And happy holidays. Thanks again, Alan. We'll see you guys online.
Thank you.
Take care.
You
all.
all.